striving together for the faith of the gospel. Not just in spirit, but now in purpose. The gospel purpose. This is already now the 6th time he said the word gospel. 5, 6, 7, 16, 12, 27 twice. He's spoken of our fellowship in the gospel, the defense of the gospel, proclaiming the gospel. He's given the idea many more times in chapter 1 as we read. To preach Christ. Christ is preached, and so forth. This is Paul's purpose, the advance of the gospel. And this is their purpose, that with one mind you might strive together. To strive together for the faith of the gospel. Holding forth the word of life, 2:15. Here is this colony of heaven. What's it for? Not just to be united. It's united for a purpose. Just as their Roman colony had been settled intentionally to advance the cause and reign of Caesar, so this congregation has been assembled for that purpose, for the King of Kings. Is that your purpose, everyone? Are you striving each one together for the purpose of the advance of the gospel, holding forth the word of life? Paul calls you to one purpose and one joyful ambition, to advance Christ's good news. So you can take a lesson from this too. Unity, point 1, without a common purpose, point 2, is as cold as a marriage of convenience. Perhaps you know people who live together, they're married, they have lives together, but they say, you know, you go your way, I'll go mine. Now, what do you think of that? Well, maybe you say, at least they're together. Okay, that's something, I suppose, but it's not the way it's supposed to be. Where is the common passion and purpose? In the church, we must not only have a common spirit, but a common purpose, striving together for the faith of the gospel. And this has everything to do with our unity. I've never gone fox hunting. I'd like to go sometime, I suppose. But I understand that everyone assembles together and everyone's got the horses and the dogs are there. And the dogs are waiting for the hunt to begin. And, you know, they're very excited and they're just kind of nipping at each other, right? So they're just snipping at each other. But as soon as the horn blows, the dogs are off, right? And this is the way that the church needs to be also, right? Because if it's just concerned about its own things, idiotes, it's just going to be snipping at each other. There needs to be the trumpet blast. Christ Church, Radford, advance. And as we are all going together on that way, it has everything to do with our unity together. And the church is not a place for passengers. The attitude of gospel citizens in a colony is not, well, I agree with the purpose and calling, but I'm not going to be part of it to fulfill it. Consent is not cooperation. Agreement is not partnership. We need to be united together, striving for the faith of the gospel, and not having some cloistered virtue. Well, let's move on. Just as we are to be united in godly community, point 1, for the purpose of a united gospel advance, point 2, well, you know what that's going to mean, right? You have united church, gospel advance, you're going to have suffering. Paul had suffered in Philippi. Remember the beating at night, all that. And those proud Romans, remember what they complained? These men are teaching us customs which are not lawful for us, being Romans, to receive or observe. This was a church under fire. They're teaching things that aren't lawful for Romans. These people were against our civilization. They are advancing another king and another passion and another cause. And what is this going to be now but life under opposition? What kind of life, though, does the gospel teach us to have? Remember the theme, lives worthy of the gospel. Does the gospel teach us to cower in fear? No, the gospel teaches us boldness. We say, we have received eternal life. The Lord is my helper. What can man do to me? You cannot take away anything that could possibly matter to me in the long run. That's what the gospel teaches. And therefore, to live lives worthy of the gospel, thirdly, they are called to be united in courage. Verse 28, continuing. Not in any way terrified by your adversaries, which is a proof to them of perdition, but to you of salvation, and that from God, Your courage and joy in the face of suffering, think of Stephen, speaks volumes to those outside the church, as well as those inside. In fact, if there was anything that so sealed the bold testimony of this ancient church in the days of Rome, point 2, it was their joyful courage in suffering, point 3. I'd like to illustrate it to you with the famous account of the martyrdom of Polycarp. The sound of hooves at midnight, horsemen galloping into the clatter of armor as soldiers surrounded the house and woke the old man. 2 officers dismount. They warm their numb hands against the cold night of February 22nd, 166.